Hey guys, this is my first time doing a YouTube live, so bear with me. I'm a complete newbie with this one, but I have a YouTube channel. My name is Alyssa Rose. My YouTube channel is Alyssa Rose at Legends Dog Training, and my first live video. What I would like to talk about is I want to talk about food. Uh, Specifically, I want to talk about how food influences behavior, specifically with dogs, but then also how does it tie into the bigger picture, just with animals in general? How does it even tie in with our own behavior? So I think that this is like an incredibly interesting topic that doesn't get nearly enough attention. Um, so hopefully you guys feel the same way. A couple of things that I want to be talking about is number one, I think that society has a very weird relationship with food. And I think that that's true when it comes to food and people, but then also food and dogs. Um, and I think it's pretty fascinating because food is sometimes seen as the enemy, and in order for food to really have the greatest impact on our lives, that in the most beneficial way, whether we're talking about how it influences our ability to regulate emotional responses, or how, or our dog's emotional responses, like how can it be used to actually condition calm behavior in different situations? How can it be used to strengthen bonds? Because that is absolutely one of its functions, I believe. It's not a coincidence that animals that live within social constructs, they eat together. We as people, we eat together a lot of times. Hopefully, right? It's encouraged to sit down together and share dinner at minimum. And if when you meet up with friends and family that you haven't seen in a long time, you go out for lunch. When you see your grandparents, they bring you food a lot of times. My German grandparents always brought me food. They would have fresh fruit. They would have fresh vegetables. They would have the candies too, always in that tin jar in their Pontiac. Food was such it's such a critical part of our everyday lives. It's such a critical part of our relationships. It's such a critical part of our behavior in general. And for some reason, all we can talk about is how food is the enemy. When it comes to our dogs and training, people are using food in training. Then a lot of times they're asking, well, when can I stop having food on me? When can I stop using it for training? Um, and so this is kind of what I want to dive into, those types of questions. And I think it's a valid question. It's something that definitely deserves a discussion, but I also think that we need to kind of reframe the bigger picture first before we can start answering those types of questions. And also, to join me for today's discussion, this is Fritzer. He is my Basset Hound Labrador Retriever mix, and he's gonna be joining us today. Um, all right, so number one, let's talk about the role of food, and I just created a video that I had posted on my YouTube channel. I also posted it on Facebook, so anybody who follows me there. My Facebook business pages are Legends Dog Training and Base Training Method, which kind of dives into my specific niche, my specific approach to training. Um, um, so the video is posted there. It's all about how food shapes behavior. It's that bigger picture look. It's something. This is something that I've been wanting to create for a while. I had written a blog about it several years ago, but the video is so cool because you actually get to pull in all these visuals of animals just doing exactly what they do. I mean, and if you're by a window right now and you just look out the window, wait for a minute and watch to see if you see a bird, or you see a squirrel, or you see maybe a gopher or a lizard. And if you watch that one animal then even for 60 seconds, they're probably going to be practicing some behaviors, not in all cases, but in a lot of cases you're going to see that animal practicing behaviors that's related to food, and that's because food shapes our behaviors. In the most natural settings, food plays a nearly constant role in shaping behavior. Um, so that applies to animals, prey and predator. It applies to foraging, hunting, tracking, chasing, scenting, all of these skill sets that are necessary for animals to survive. Um, those behaviors are constantly being fine-tuned. Um, so not only are those skill sets being improved by the acquisition of food, but bonds are also being strengthened. So I mean, it's baby season with the birds, and for lots of animals, we have a nest right, a few feet from our door, and if I sit there for any length of time and watch the 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 parents, they're coming back, they're bringing food to their babies. I mean, so it's fascinating how it how food just enters into every crevice of our of our lives and of animal life. So developing skill sets, developing bonds, also regulating emotional responses is another big one. So if the next time you watch National Geographic and think about the surge of adrenaline, think about the emotional state of a lion that is chasing down a zebra. Think about the changes physiologically that are occurring there, the adrenaline rush that's pumping through that animal's bloodstream, and then what happens when they actually, capture their food, and then it's mealtime. And think about how that's affecting their brain and their body and the different chemical changes. It's fascinating. Um, so in the same way, and one of the big comparisons that I always think about is with our dog's behavior. Fritz loves to play fetch. I can take him down to the beach and I can play fetch with him for 2 hours. If as long as I'm throwing the ball, he's going after it. But what's happening each time that we're throwing that ball, right? Think about the adrenaline surge that's happening there, and how these types of things carry over. These routine things that we're practicing carry over into our dog's behavior and their physiological responses. So I should say that if Fritz let me, he would chase that ball all day long. But it's actually up to me to kind of consider those types of factors and to regulate those practices a little bit, so that I don't have a dog that's just becoming this adrenaline junkie that's sitting there seeing me with the ball and that's barking at me nonstop, or jumping for the ball, or just going banana. So I think I guess the thing that I like to think about the most, and I don't know who I might be losing at this point if I'm getting too deep into some of these details. This might be a little bit beyond people's level of interest. I don't know. If this is something that you guys think about, let me know. This is something that is constantly on my mind. I don't always talk about it a ton with my training clients, because a lot of times they just want to know exactly how to fix their dog's behavior. They don't want to think about the physiological responses. They don't want to think about the biological responses. They just want to know, how do I make my dog stop barking at me when I pick up a tennis ball? Or how do I get my dog to respond to me even if I'm not holding a treat in front of their nose, right? But again, I think that if we really want to understand those problems in a better way, we should kind of see how these things fit into the picture in a bigger way. So let me guys know. I mean, for anyone, there might be people that are tuning in and that might be listening to this and thinking this is not for them. For anyone that's still watching, I'm totally curious if this is anything that you guys ever think about. If you have a dog or you have a cat or you're just a nature lover, or if you love to watch National Geographic, are you fascinated by this stuff the way that I am? So and to be honest, I don't even know how this works on YouTube. Are you guys even able to comment? I don't know. This is my first time and I'm just kind of giving it a go. All right. So anyway, we talked a little bit about how food, the role that it plays. And I guess the big thing that I want to emphasize here is that in my mind, food is the thing that binds us all together. Food is the one thing that really like unifies and connects us. And you can think about that on any level that you want. So whether you're thinking about your specific family unit, your relationship with your dog, if you think about how it influences us just even as a community within each of our individual neighborhoods, I could give a ton of examples, and I'm not going to right now because it might take me off point a little bit. But you can really think about food's role in so many different ways and how it literally binds us together. So now the thing that I really want to think about is what are we really asking when we're saying, well, but do I always have to use food in order to get my dog to do these behaviors? So in short, I think that's a complicated question, because I think that if you're looking at food's role in this way and you're thinking about how integral it is to our relationships and our brain's response to the environment and its ability to regulate emotional responses, the short answer to me is I think that it is more important to use food in your day-to-day routine with your dog to push different skill sets or different relationships forward. I think it's more important to maintain food in those situations than it is to deliver food within a dog food bowl. I think that at some point with our dogs, we decided that it was just more convenient because we live really super busy lives. It was more convenient to pour food into a dog food bowl and then push it in front of our dog's nose than it was to take that time to actually connect. And the same thing happens within our family units too. So, it could be easier to throw some food in the microwave. Everybody grabs their individual food, right? Maybe everybody's eating something different because that's just the way some things work out nowadays, right? And people go to their separate areas and they start eating while they're working on something, or while they're watching a YouTube video, or they're just going on social media. Who knows? I don't know. I'm just giving some examples. And there's this disconnect. So instead of having this opportunity where food can bring us all together, because it's more convenient to just kind of let everyone do their own thing, we're losing this opportunity to connect. And that is a major loss, in my opinion. I think that as much as possible, whatever it looks like, if you're not able to sit down at 6 o'clock at night and have everyone come together over a meal, then I get it. Like, sometimes that doesn't work, but then let's figure out how it can work into our schedules. And this applies to our dogs. If if you just find that it's more convenient to put your food into a bowl, I get it, because I have 3 kids, and I have 3 dogs, and I run my own business, and there's a lot that's competing for our attention and our time. So I totally get it if we're not able to sit down and use every meal to connect, but that should be the goal. And if you're not able to do it, then figure out some way of factoring it into your schedule. I like to, I'm gonna give an example of the food that I use for my dogs. So I use Charlie Bears, which is a dry food. This is something that I can put into a mason jar, and I can keep it in different locations in the house, and it can be really easy. It's really accessible. Fritz, do you want this? All right. I find that in general, dogs seem to really like it. So even though it's a dry food, it's still something that's totally functional to use. And if you're really hurting for time, then this could be a good way to kind of fit in really short, like 3 to 5 minute training sessions here or there. The thing that I more typically use for training is called Happy Howies. It's a food roll. And then with something like this, you can cut it down into smaller pieces, and it's moist, it's meaty, which is generally, if you're into dog training at all, then you know that those are really important qualities in a good training food. So I can break it into small pieces. Generally, something that's meaty is going to be higher value to a dog, and therefore, if you're ever trying to train in higher distraction situations, that's what you want, is something that's higher value. So, you know, I'm going to say that you should, even if you feel like you have the world's most perfect dog, then I think that you should still be looking for opportunities to take a jar of Charlie Bears and sit down and work on something, right? Anything you choose. If you want to teach your dog to grab a beer from the refrigerator, work on that. It's a nice way to connect. It's a good way to get your dog problem solving. It's a great way to boost your communication skills. I also think that the skills that we learn when we're training can feed over into many other areas of our lives, but that's a whole nother discussion topic. But even training should not just be because there's a behavioral issue in front of us. Training should be something that we do to connect and communicate and to enrich our dogs' lives. But for anyone that might tune in at any point and that might be thinking they have the world's most perfect dog that doesn't have any behavioral issues, that would be the great majority. That would be the great minority, rather, of you. The great minority is going to say that they have a lot of frustrations with their dog. And I want to challenge anybody that is potentially tuning in and that does have those really frustrating areas in their dog's lives. The majority of those situations are going to occur, in my opinion, and anybody can contest this if they want. I'd love to have that discussion. But the great majority of problem behaviors are going to occur because your dog is really struggling to adapt to living a life in a world that we've created for them that happens to be incredibly challenging, even for us. Like even if you're just thinking about our ability to adapt to the routines that we create for ourselves, like most people struggle in that area. Our dogs definitely struggle in that area. they get absolutely no say in where they live, right? They don't get to say I want to live in the country or suburbia or in the city. They don't get to say what their routine looks like. The absolute only way that we have any indication of how well our dog is doing in their environment and with their routine is by reading their behavior. And if your dog barks at other dogs on leash, barks at motorcycles, lunges at bicyclists, um, uh, you know, what you know, goes bananas when somebody walks in, this all of their behavior is information that's telling us something we have. Um, if we're going to actually consider our dog to be like a family member or a friend, a lot of times we call dogs man's best friend. Um, that relationship shouldn't be one directional. It shouldn't just be the dog that is unconditionally in love with their person because their person can do anything that they want and the dog will still be loyal to them. It shouldn't be that way, right? We should actually be assessing our dog's mental and emotional well-being, and we should be taking absolutely every measure, everything that we can do to improve their quality of life. We should be doing that because they do play such an incredible role in our families. Why would we not do that? Um, food food is going to be the thing that bridges that divide between the two. So if your dog is struggling to adapt to seeing other dogs on walks, food can be used in that situation to help regulate their emotional responses, to change the way that their brain perceives that environmental change. And we can get into strategies and we can talk about training plans and really kind of getting deep into that, but that again is for another video. But I just want to emphasize that, you know, that food is the thing that is going to help your dog thrive in their situation. Food is what I use. That is my go-to tool to help my dogs thrive in their home environment, in their situations. And there's never any question for me about whether or not it's okay that to ask ourselves, well, my dog is only doing this because they want food. To me, that's such a weird, bizarre problem that people feel that people come up with. I mean, again, kind of going back to the lion. I mean, it's like saying the lion's only hunting the zebra because it's gonna get food. It doesn't even make sense. Of course, yes, that's why all of those behaviors are occurring, because it's being reinforced with food. You know, same thing. We could make the same argument for the bees that are going after the pollen, or the the ants that are bringing food back to their anthills. That are like, yeah, all of those behaviors are occurring because those behaviors are constantly reinforced by the acquisition of food. And yet for some reason we think that we can extract that from our dogs' lives and still have a dog that's perfectly well adapted. The trainers that actually believe that are usually going to they're going to advocate that you not use food in training, but then they are going to put maybe a prong collar on the dog or a remote training collar to suppress those behaviors, to get a dog that's just going to robotically move through their day-to-day routine and not have the ability to express their emotional responses. That to me, it doesn't make any sense. It's not truly addressing the problem. It's not improving. I get it. People will, and people are going to say, well, my dog still, I use a prong collar or I use a remote collar and my dog still loves me anyway. So that proof? Is that proof enough that it's okay to use those types of tools on our dog, just because they still unconditionally love us? I'm going to argue no. That's not that's not reason enough. Um, I think it doesn't make any sense using prong collars and electronic shock collars and spray bottles and shaker cans and all this other stuff that is only trying to quiet. It's only trying to silence our dog, and so that we don't have to deal with the problem. All of those issues are still going to be brewing beneath the surface, but just so long as the person doesn't have to deal with the problem, then it's not a problem. If you've ever been in a situation where you've been really angry about something, you've been really upset, you've been really frustrated, but you didn't feel that you could talk about it, tell me how that made you feel. How infuriating is it to not be able to express yourself and to express your emotions? It's not healthy, and it's not healthy to be doing this to our dogs. It's not healthy if you walk out there and sometimes you see people that are walking around with their dog on 3 different types of collars. It's not healthy. It's not. It's not improving the dog's well-being. It's not. It's not connecting with your dog. It's not improving communication. If anything, because the dog's mental and emotional needs are not being met, a lot of times you actually see that this can cause physical illness. And there's studies about it, and if you want to write in the comments and you want to ask me about it, I will look up those studies. But we know for a fact that if we're going to look at behavioral issues and attempt to address those behavioral issues just by suppressing behavior, we know that it can do so much more harm than good. So, again, this just all kind of goes back to this idea that that food is in my mind, there's just no reasonable argument for not using food in training any behavior, and there's no reasonable argument for not using food in behavior modification if you're trying to modify a behavior that seems really that's challenging, that's maybe making it difficult for your dog to thrive in their home environment, in their routine. It's causing friction in your relationship. Use food. I'm gonna wrap it up here, but again, this was my first Facebook or rather YouTube live. Feel free. I would love it if you guys would comment on this. Feel free to challenge. I actually really enjoy when people um, if you don't agree with anything that I've said, tell me. I want to have those conversations. If you know somebody that feels strongly about not using food or about using aversive collars in training, send them this way. I would love to have more of those conversations. One of the things that I love about YouTube is that it can break the bubble. It can move us outside of just our smaller, more enclosed communities. And I'm really kind of hoping that by doing more of these lives that we can get some more fun, engaging conversation going. So we'll see what that's gonna look like. But my goal right now is to be coming out and doing these Facebook lives once a week. You can also, if you're looking to connect with me at all, if you want to bring this conversation or just join the discussion on other platforms, I'm on Facebook. You can go to Legends Dog Training. You can go to Base Training Method on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram under the name at Legends Dog Training. All right. And I also do weekly Facebook lives through Facebook as well. So if that interests you at all, hopefully you'll join us there, and feel free to comment and let me know if you're new to the Facebook page. All right, have a great day. It was